Join us in a festival that promises to be extraordinary, because Bali is extraordinary.
Hi everyone, welcome to Ubud Writers and Readers Festival 2021. This year, the festival returns with the theme Mulat Sarira, Self-Reflection, which is drawn from a Balinese Hindu philosophy. From 8 to 17 October, we will explore the meaning of self-reflection, cultural introspection, and human rights, examining who we are, what unites and divides us, and what drives our actions. Thank you for joining us for today's main session, Sustainable Design. The speakers for today's session are Popo Danes, Anneke van Waesberghe, Kristine H. Harper, and the moderator for today's session is Rio Helmi. Thank you and enjoy.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming, making the effort. And so we have an interesting panel today. We have a writer, we have an architect, two architects actually here. Okay, a nomad. And so we're here to discuss sustainable design and what it means. And I'd like to just kick off, if you don't mind, if each one of you could just give us like a quick 3-minute intro about who you are, what you do, and in relationship to this sustainable design theme. So would you like to start, Kristine?
Yeah, I would love to.
Okay.
So my name is Kristine Harper. I'm from Denmark, from Copenhagen, Denmark. Been in Bali for a couple of years now, and I've been for many years working in sustainable design, lecturing at a university in Copenhagen, primarily within sustainable fashion, but also other kinds of product design. I'm the author of a couple of books about sustainable design and sustainable living, and I also write articles about the topic for several different magazines. And I also write a blog called The Immaterialist, which I guess gives away a little bit about my approach already to sustainable living. And to say a little bit about sustainable design, my approach to it is very, very much affected by, you can see my books here that I brought today. The first one is called Aesthetic Sustainability, and it's because when I work with sustainability, I'm always looking at aesthetics, because I feel like that aesthetics is an extremely important factor when you design something for longevity. Unless it's continuously aesthetically pleasing, nourishing, you are going to be more inclined to discard it, and that adds to overconsumption, very briefly put. My new book that just came out is called Anti-Trend. In this book, I'm also working with sustainable design and sustainable living, resilient design as well. And of course, the title gives away that I'm also talking a lot about tendencies and trends, and particularly what I call anti-trend. And this is because trends tend to add to overconsumption. And my mantra when I work with sustainable designers and teach sustainable designers, which I continuously do worldwide, is that they should work on creating design that encourages consumers to reduce consumption, because overconsumption is one of the main offenders when we're talking about unsustainable living. I think that was a couple of minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Popo.
Thanks, Rio. I'm Popo Danes. I'm architect from Bali. I always live in Bali all my life, but I'm lucky enough to get all of this opportunity working all over, like at least Pacific Asia and also in like this entire archipelago of Indonesia. So from there, as I was learning first in Bali regarding the vernacular local cultural architecture, how you call it, where I found a lot of messages about the culture, philosophy, and always there's a message about sustainability as well. In that way, we are not trying to also help the other part of Indonesia to implement this same kind of formula we did in the Kepulauan Riau and some remote island. We just came back from one remote island in East Borneo. We did a project in Sumba, which is currently already shortlisted to become one of the award-winning project for Indonesian architecture for this year. So we will keep doing this, also giving a lot of messages regarding sustainability to, especially to the other architect, because most of the young architect in Indonesia I found, they always have the orientation to the modernity, and which is, I'm not saying I against that, but like how can we syncretize the locality, because it's available easily everywhere in Indonesia. If we can develop that to become something, I think that will be the best. Thank you.
Okay, Anneke.
Hi, I am Anneke van Waesberghe, and I am Dutch. I'm from Holland, and I have worked on sustainability already quite a long time ago. In 1992, I organized the Design for the Environment competition. There was also a TV program made about it. And this is that old brochure. And if you really want to see, the actual dates are still in there, 1992. At that time, there was no interest in the environment, and I was very much interested in it, but even with all the passion that I had, it just didn't work. So I had to postpone it. So what I've done recently, I'm going to launch this design competition again on the 20th of October. And I think it's really time now that something is going to happen. So designers have a very important role in selecting materials. So the materials that they're using, they were used to just have access to the materials only, but now their responsibility has become much deeper, because they really need to know how, for example, hemp grows. One of the materials, you can make textiles out of it and so on, and a lot of other products. But if you know how a product grows, you can, when you go to the farmer and you go to the lands and you can see what all the byproducts are, you can also come up with ideas what to do with it. And so that responsibility is much deeper now. And what I've done, I've set up a coconut academy, and with that academy we are teaching people how to make like 10 or more products out of coconut. And the very end use of a coconut is when we burn it to cook the oil, the ashes, we're using it as lye, so to make soap, for example. So it's like a product that goes completely from the beginning until the end. And so it's a very important issue that designers have much more responsibility these days. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Could we have the first slide in the Kristine box? Second, next one. Sorry. Okay, so just coming back to the name of her book, Anti-Trend, and then, so she defines here, anti-trend is not the same as counter-trend, as you can read, and an intended opposition to predominant tendencies is connected to the rhythms of life that are always the same, or that are always, at least long-lasting. And I kind of say, okay, you know, what Popo was talking about there is the things that are there already, to use the things which are already in there, and also what you just said about the materials, or the designer should know the materials, how it's procured, how it grows, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, really, now my first question that I would like to ask you, and you're welcome to jump in, or you can do it in sequence if you like, but I'm just trying to define sustainability. What does sustainability actually mean? I mean, you have the economic side of it, you have the ecological viability of it, you have also, it's questions about, manufacturing. You have also questions about what will motivate people to actually implement this. So, if one of you is ready to go, start.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would
go
love to
ahead.
say something about that.
Okay.
It's a really good question, and I feel it's so important sometimes to take this word again and look at it and say, what does this mean? Because it's
Sorry,
been
just 1 second.
used.
Can you understand, or is it too much bass?
It's a little bit.
Tu peux monter un peu le
Yeah.
ton.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a word that we hear so much, and it's almost also becoming like a bit of a thing, like a fashion, a trend, which is of course something I'm really opposed to in my book. That you can say something is sustainable, and then people buy into it. There's a lot of storytelling that uses the word. But I think really to narrow it down, in my book I'm also kind of trying to define it further. And if we look at it, it has to do with something that we can sustain. And in that, I feel like there's a really great deal of ethics as well. So there's an ethical dimension.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be something that is justifiable, not only on the short-term usage of a product, if that's what we're working with, but also on the long run, and definitely in relation to our environment and people and so forth. So something that we can sustain in an ethical manner is something that is justifiable, in my term.
Can you put the second screen up, please? Okay, so here I took this out of your book. This is the list of what you define as, something which fits into that.
Yes.
So you have circular, iterative, et cetera, et cetera.
There's
and
a
then
lot of
on
words.
the other side, you have exactly what it's a counter of, or the
Yes.
or the
What I'm
anti of.
working against in the book. That's right.
And
There are a
so
lot of words here. Yeah.
coming to the first category I asked about sustainability, economic. And obviously, in the long run, one would say, okay, what you're saying on the left column there makes a lot of economic sense.
Yes.
But when in your book you talked about we as creatives and as consumers, that's probably a better mic for you.
Is this one instead?
Yeah, the other one's a little
Okay.
bit too.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So when you said we in your book, and you said this is the creatives and the consumers,
Yeah.
and I asked you,
Yes.
well, what about the captains of industry? I mean, I was just watching a program earlier, and there was the head of the sustainability of General Electric, and he made some interesting points. And one of the things he said is like, well, General Electric is responsible for 30% or a third of the energy in the world. I mean, that's power, Forgive the pun, but and when you say all these things over there, I understand. I mean, I completely understand it from an emotional point of view, but how does that work from an economic point of view?
So you mean, can you still make money from it, basically? First of all, you certainly can. It's also, I feel like I'm often being asked when I talk, because I talk so much about reduction of consumption, and I talk a lot to designers, and then they say to me, so there's going to be no work for us in the future? And there certainly is. It's just going to be like a new kind of work. So designers have a huge task right now, and there's going to be plenty of stuff to do for designers. It might be a little bit different than what they did a couple of years ago, or more years ago, or even now, but that's okay. All branches alter. And when you're asking me about the big players, yes, of course they're responsible too, but I feel like we shouldn't underestimate the power of the consumer as well. They produce what consumers want. Consumers have a lot of power.
But wouldn't then we become three instead of the two?
Yes, definitely. You're right about that. But in my book, I do focus on designers and what designers can do, and consumers and what consumers can do. And this is why I write that in the book.
Yes.
But you're completely right.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in here actually, because it's like typical my subject right now.
Would you like to jump in on this? Go ahead.
Yeah, very
Go
much,
ahead.
if that is okay
Could you
with
show
you.
Anneke's? Could we get to Anneke's?
Oh, that's okay. No, I just want to on the
Oh, okay,
subject.
okay.
Yeah?
Just hold it.
So, because I have brought these three
Oh, you've got all these
posters.
things here.
Yeah, so it's like the corporation's responsibility, it's the individual's responsibility, and the society's responsibility to create like sustainable development. And right now, most people, individuals, they don't think that they have the power to make changes, and they do, because when they buy a product, they know what they're doing. So if you're buying
Okay.
shopping and you buy something made of plastic, or you buy something that is made out of a natural material, or a product that is long lasting, or etc. So you have a choice to do what you want. And there are also several other ways because, for
But what
example,
motivates them?
what motivates them is that they feel that they are doing something good, and that will satisfy them more than maybe buying a diamond ring. I don't know.
Okay,
It just
so-
depends on the individual.
So
yeah.
what you're relying on is for them to become conscious on their own.
You become conscious on their own and have the satisfaction of living that way. Because
You're going to have to forgive me. I'm
Yeah.
a little bit cynical on that,
Yeah,
on
okay.
that aspect.
Very good, very good, yeah.
I would just say, really? I haven't seen much evidence of it, you know. So how
Okay.
would you step into that breach? You know, how would you try to change that formula, and how do you motivate people to implement things which are more sustainable in their own lives, besides yelling at them?
Well, I have probably a very narrow-minded idea about it, but I do think, for example, if I would, as an investor, for example,
Yeah.
if I were to be one, I would invest in a green industry. And if, let's say, I invest maybe like $100,000 or $10,000, let's say 10,000, and I know that there is a future that my investment will become worth a lot more. I will not only be happy about the fact that I have given that $10,000 a possibility for people to develop a new product, for example, or a new system or a new way of being more sustainable. And I think it's very important that you feel like the good feeling that you have, the good feeling that you have to have done that, I think is a huge value. You cannot...
I don't disagree about
Sorry.
the value,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I'm interested in what you said there was kind of interesting about, it kind of points to economic viability. At some point there has to be some, so if you're investing something, I mean somebody's investing something, they want to feel good, but they're also going to see, hey, this is going to pan out.
Going
It
to-
has to pan out, right? I mean, if you want to motivate people
Yes.
to move it.
That's
That's
the economy. That's what the economy does. So
Yeah.
that is already existing system. So you can rely on that as
Well-
far as it always has worked. But things are changing. So the whole world is right now a white canvas. So everybody can fill it in the way that they want to, and all of you can actually. So it's a very
Since you have the floor, let's just show. Can you show me Anneke's folder and just go through it? Okay, that's not Anneke's folder, but I'm sure we'll get there. Okay, so
So to continue on that, because there is, like I said, so you have the society, you have corporations, and you have corporations and so on. So the corporations have a huge responsibility. Like all the plastic that we see floating around everywhere is because these companies are still creating products that are made out of plastic, and we are all trapped in that system. So if we go to a supermarket, we are trapped to have to go to a supermarket and buy everything that's wrapped in plastic, even though we don't use a plastic bag to carry it out. But it's still everything, even
but
the tomatoes and the bananas.
It's
yeah?
a step from like 3 years ago that we actually
Yeah.
do have these cloth bags. You know. It's a
But
step.
I started this 30 years ago or 35 years ago, so it's...
Yes, I'm not, you know, I don't have a problem with it. But I'm also interested in that whole thing about, you know, energy, viability, and like we're showing on the screen now some of your designs. Can we go next? This is a tent, by the way, for the people who don't understand.
There's a tent with an atrium, so you can really enjoy beautiful nature, and the rain falls into the pool only, and it's really a lovely feeling to be close to nature.
Okay.
And to also be protected, because you can swim in the shade and all of that.
So
Yeah.
tell me, what is the advantage of the tent from the point of view of the ecology?
Because you live so close to nature, and my inspiration as a designer, and I so hope that other people will have a very similar experience. When you live in a tent, nature almost grows inside the tent. And you have an incredible panoramic view over nature, because usually when you are in a tent or you live in a tent, you're not in the city, so you're usually around nature. And nature really reflects an incredible energy.
I once stayed at the Amanwana. I was offered a free thing because they used to be my clients, and then I would never be able to afford to stay there on my own. But I just went and stayed there, and it was very nice. You know, it was like air-conditioned tent, and you know, it was. But what I'm getting at is that, as I said, I could never afford to go there.
That's right.
spend,
On my
you know,
tent, you
like
can afford it. You can go to
$800
Bali.
just
Yeah.
to sort of
Yeah.
like,
It's
you know,
okay.
I mean, the turtles were nice in the water, but, you know, the tent, it's kind of expensive to stay in a tent, you know, and then, so how does that, aside from the elite who can afford it, how can you see that becoming something which would be useful in a broader, you know, demographic?
Well,
And affordable.
Okay, so we have like projects in 30 different countries. And every operator, I would say, they determine their own price value. So you can stay in a tent for $150, but you can also probably get one for $1,500. There's one, it's called Bali Beach Glamping, which is near Tabanan. And I think their price is like 2 million rupiah. So I think that's quite affordable. It's always fully booked. They started during the coronavirus. And they're doing incredibly well. So people are really ready to go deep into nature.
$150?
Yeah, yes, that's
I
right.
might go.
So
Save up some money.
I know. Now you can afford it.
Okay,
So,
next
yeah.
one?
This is my house. This is also my house. This is a sanctuary where I live.
So you're walking the talk. Okay.
Yeah, I'm walking the talk, right? Exactly. I'm not only walking the talk, but in order to really do something for the environment, I live that lifestyle. So I have 16 coconut trees, and from these coconut trees we make so many different products, more than 10 different products. And I think I could sustain if everything would go wrong in the world. I just think I could survive. I can make my own soap, my own laundry, dishwashing soap, my own bread, cookies, everything
Well, I mean,
you can imagine.
there is something that comes up from this that we'll discuss it a bit later, which is, you know, does one size fit all? But we'll talk about that in a minute. I'd like to go to Popo now. Earlier on, Kristine said a word that really hasn't been part of the discussion right now. And can we have Popo Danes' folder, please? Which was ethics. How is something justifiable in the long run? You know? So can we have the folder of Popo Danes, number 1, please? This is kind of the old style remote control. Okay, so this, I believe, was your first hotel resort, wasn't it?
Yes, kind of. Yeah, this was located
It wasn't, it wasn't, kind of.
in the eastern part of Ubud, Natura.
Okay.
And that's something that I can share, very interesting about this one. At that time, we started this in 1996, and on the very steep valley, and we were trying to use as light as possible the structure. And at that time, wood was still easy to find and very affordable. So I was using a lot of timber structure to create the space for this resort. And also in that way we can implement and we can transform some of the function and detail of a Balinese architecture to become a new hospitality architecture. After this resort was done, one guy came, he's Australian at the time, and appreciate the way we design, and he said, "Popo, I love the way you play with wood, and I want you to design one villa for me, and for our project, you can select the wood as much as you like." And he sent me to his camp in East Kalimantan, where at that time he was starting a project of palm oil plantation.
Are we talking ethics now? Okay,
yes.
all right, okay.
So then, from that experience, when I spent 2 weeks in the jungle in Kalimantan, I witnessed how they destroy the forest. And since that time, I'm becoming so careful in using the tropical wood. So now I will only use either plantation wood or reclaimed wood, if we have to use the wood. We have, I mean, my appreciation to natural resources becoming so much developed after that experience.
And also, that was the first hotel in that community, right?
Yes.
So, how did that go?
It worked so well, especially I was involved there in the first 2 years at least, and the way we are developing the relationship with the village, it was a kind of community-oriented business. So I was somehow copying the idea of Dayumas in Kemeno to put $1 per occupied room per night for the village, because we were the only business venture in the village. As Balinese, I must be aware at that time, every time they have festival, they have this and that, they will come to us for donation. Why don't we just create a fund for them? And it works, because during the normal period, we can put like around $250 per month for the village, and that's make us free from disturbance.
Did the fact that you had a share in that hotel, right?
Yeah, it was.
That, I mean, it helped you with your decision making as well, right?
Of course.
And here we have something which was pretty much you were the commission. This one, Ubud Yoga Center, this particular one, and the next. So I just wanted to ask you about how different that was, designing something where you have control, you have decision making, and designing something where the client is, asking for, okay, we need a room which can be heated, a room that can be air conditioned, and I mean, when we talk about environmental aspects, I mean, that's something which you basically, if they're your client. I mean, you once told me that being an architect is like being a psychologist, right? You gotta be able to know what the client wants.
I thought you already forgot about it.
Yes, especially for corporate. So, what was the big difference between that project, for example, and the Natura project for you?
Yeah, from Natura project and as well as the Hanging Gardens project, we received also the ASEAN Energy Awards as the best practice in tropical architecture in controlling the energy. So we are in this kind of landscape where we can do a lot of passive cooling control for the day lighting, for instance, and how can we optimize the use of energy. So because in this kind of modern industrial situation, the biggest consumption of energy is in the air condition, because the lighting now is so easy. They are all using LED, 3 watts, 5 watts is already big. For this Ubud Yoga Center, especially, they are doing Bikram yoga. Bikram yoga, the hot yoga. They need the room to be at the temperature of 40 degrees. It must be heated. So the heater must need quite some energy as well. So that's why we put a good backup from the sustainable, the renewable energy from the solar panel. Yeah, the good thing is because they also doing the yoga session during the daytime when we collect the energy without using the battery, because the problem of the renewable energy, especially from the solar today, is still how to combine between the solar panel and the battery.
And it's expensive.
And expensive, and how to recycle the battery later on, that's also still
an issue. That's another thing too. And here's a project where you renovated this. Did they come? Did you see this, or did they come to you, or how? I mean, it's a kind of a naive question, but I'm just curious. Did they have this property, and what did they want to do initially with this property?
So, one of my friend, also a good client, was offered to buy this property in Lombok, in central Lombok, and it was a badly damaged structure from 1920s. It was the spot of the Dutch to dance at that time.
Okay, let's not start that. Okay, it's over. Okay.
So it was damaged, and my friend asked me, Popo, I got this offer. Can we use this property? Yes, sure. I love the structure. How do you like?
So they basically wanted to knock it down and build something new.
They don't know what to do. And why don't we just rebuild this structure to become something? And their core business are restaurant. So then we developed this to become a restaurant. We refreshed this, and luckily we still can find so many people who can support us in making this project happening. So we got some old roof tile, exactly the same in Bandung from one Dutch building, and somebody from Pasuruan still can copy the terrazzo tile in the old-fashioned way. And also somebody from Surabaya support us with the glass inload, the stained glass.
So basically, you I mean, by this time you had a reputation already, right? And with your reputation, you could suggest to them, no, let's not knock it down.
Yeah.
But if you think if you had been just a brand new architect, that would have taken off?
Yeah, and actually,
I mean, we're just talking about leverage here, you know.
somebody was really angry to know that we took this building and put it back this way because they were having another agenda
Yeah.
to create a kind of malls and everything.
Ah,
So, but of course, we have to convince the client through the economic corridor.
it's a great photo.
Yeah, I'll tell you who's the photographer later.
You took it?
Yeah, now this place is becoming like the landmark of Mataram
Yes.
city, and every important person who come to Lombok, they must have their meals here. The president, ministers, whoever, they always.
So this is an important aspect of architecture, and I think, Anneke, you would agree too, is that you create something that not only is, structurally interesting and serves its purpose, but it also has an iconic role, right? Something. Do you think that architecture necessarily has to have that aspect to it? Something which, yeah, I'm asking you.
Okay, well, it does and it doesn't, because I think that in general, architecture, in the past at least, when you enter a hotel, it's always, the entrance halls are so huge and so palatial. You feel like a little midget, you become like almost like a useless little thing, and you stand there and you are kind of like, I feel like that sometimes. So I do think it would be good if they would reduce that down a little bit and make it more like human-sized, and something that a human palate can really feel comfortable with.
But in this case, for example, something like this, which was an old Dutch building, and it has a heritage aspect to it.
I don't see that back in that anymore, though.
Hmm?
I don't see that Dutch influence back in.
No, but when you go inside it, it's very much.
Okay,
It's
all
very
right,
much.
all right,
It's
yeah,
very much. It's got a lot of Dutch. Popo's used a lot of the old, the old glass and the, stuff
building
like that.
elements.
Elements,
yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, that's like refurbishing, yeah. It's like refurbishing a
Yes.
place.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good sustainable thing to do, just like you do with products and you do with everything. Like, for example, if you don't mind, I just go into a subject that is related to design, very much like, for example, a company like Nutricia. They have like this packaging, and so there are now new systems and ways to refill the bottles. So they have in the supermarkets a place where you can go to and you can refill your old bottle and so on. So that's one way you can do it with that kind of product. But I think like refurbishing products, I think is also a great idea. Recycling products is also a fantastic idea. So there is like, for example, if you recycle plastic, you can upcycle it or you can downcycle it, and you can just like use it so many times until it's really used up. When they, for example, they use plastic to make polyester for clothing, that is a no-no because fashion will still go on forever. You just wear that dress or that shirt for one season and throw it away, and then it comes in the landfills anyway again. So
that brings us to Kristine, actually, and she's sitting there, she's ready to say something. I can feel it.
Does this one work? Yeah, it does. Well, I'm always ready to say something. I totally agree with what you just said at the end there, Anneke. And I feel like when I work with the sustainable design, which it's very often connected to like something that has to be really long-lasting, like really long-term products. And I think that's a really important way of designing. I just feel sometimes the problem with that can be that products are not always designed for usage, which is actually a little bit of a strange thing because we use them, right? Which means that kind of like when a new product is sent out into the world, it leaves the designers and the producers' hand, and it starts like a decline, right? Like it peaks at its starting point, and then when it's being used, it goes gradually downhill until it's not really very beautiful anymore or interesting anymore or whatever it is, and then it gets discarded. In order to turn that around and work with the longevity, I feel like it's really important to incorporate the idea of usage already from a starting point. So to kind of think of a product or a building for that matter as something that is open to usage, which you can do in many different ways, but one of the ways is to allow for user traces to put their marks and not to make that something that makes them more, ugly or whatever it could be, not interesting anymore, but actually something that maybe incorporates usage, which you could call aesthetic decay, I suppose. Another way of designing sustainable products could be designing for short-term usage. And of course, what Anneke was just talking about here within the kind of fast fashion industry, there's kind of a design error going on, because a lot of times products are designed for short-term usage, like that polyester dress or maybe plastic flip-flops or whatever it could be. But they're made out of materials that can last for more or less ever. And that should really be considered an error as a designer. I mean, how is that even possible? I don't really understand how we've come to this point where products that are made for trend usage, made for short-term usage, are made out of materials that could last for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that's definitely something to look into. But those materials that we already have now that are waste, we need to use them for something as well. And then we move into something a little bit more that has something to do with culture and the way we look at materials, because there's still a stigma attached to waste materials. And that's a huge problem as well.
Big stigma.
Sorry?
It's quite a big stigma.
A big stigma, yeah, there is. Like, you don't necessarily want something from waste materials because it's not new and flashy and made out of virgin materials. And I think that's a big task for designers to turn this around, because there's a lot of storytelling that needs to be done here. And also, there are already a lot of designers working like that, but it needs to be accepted by the masses. It needs to be something that the masses accept and take in. Otherwise, it really doesn't make a big difference if we're just aiming for a small group of elitist users that, you know, can afford it because it's maybe very expensive.
Like bums, but actually,
and flash it. Right? Yeah, I mean, it becomes, I suppose, less important then, because we need to really reach out for the masses in order to make a really, really great difference here, I feel.
I totally agree with that, because that was actually going to be one of my questions. How do you create a demand for an anti-trendy object or anti-trendy thing? And then you, in your book, you said, an iterative process involves doing something again and again, usually to improve it. This is exactly what happens when the anti-trendy object is being used. The more the object is used, the better it becomes. It matures and develops. Can you expand on that? I mean, there's some things which, don't they just wear out?
Not necessarily, if you think about products as in a totally different way than what we are now, because now we're really thinking about something is finished when it's being sent out into the world. And it's a very linear way of looking at it. It has a starting point, and then it develops, and at a point it has an end point, and we discard it. Or we think about circularity. There's a lot of talk about that, and that can be interesting for sure, recycling. But the fact is just right now there are too many things to be recycled. It's too much.
So what do we do with them?
So we think about it a little bit. Yeah, right now what we need to do with them is use the waste material for new products, but hopefully they'll end at a point. And then we need to make things out of something else.
Even plastic. Anneke said,
yes, hopefully it'll end at a point.
I mean, the end point, it seems to be in the fish, in water. I mean,
Yeah, no, I mean, like, hopefully at a point we'll run out of that waste, that pile of waste. That's the ideal scenario. I don't know if it's realistic, but I think when I talk about iterations within design, what I mean is if we look at a product in a different way, and I know that some designers are already, I find it intriguing, looking at it as something that becomes better with usage, or maybe you can change small parts of it, modules of it. Maybe some parts of it deteriorates with usage and you can update them. There are many different ways of looking at that. And I'm also, in my book, working with something I call sustainable short-term products, which are products that are designed to be used for a very short period of time, but they are done so in a sustainable way. So let's say, for example, that, I mean, I know designers right now are working with mushroom as a material. You could very easily design products that were allowed to be trendy and short-term in that sense out of a material like that, because you can throw it in the soil and it'll disappear. So that could be a way of legitimizing that,
Okay.
and also accommodating the fact that maybe it's not always realistic that we only design for longevity, because people are going to buy short-term products. So let's accommodate that. Let's do that in a more sustainable way.
Okay. No, that,
Does that
I
make
find that very interesting, because usually that's the big no-no. When everybody's saying,
Yes.
no,
Yes.
sustainability, you can't have a
Yes.
short-term, but you do need short-term products.
Yes.
And we're talking about
Especially
recycling and
within
Popo. I want to bring
packaging.
you in on this, because this next one on this. This side, you see these materials. This is in your office, right, Popo?
Yes.
Okay, so why is it that the most sustainable recycled architecture they've done is your own office?
This office, they are mostly facing to the north. So we block the opening especially to the west. So we are not getting any strong sun during the afternoon. In that way also we reduce a lot of the use of energy, and we were also along the south part of the office, which has like a 30 meters length. We put a skylight, which is also maintained that everybody in the office, we have 20 architects working in it. They are never using the artificial light during the day. That's important. And regarding the material, we use a lot of reclaimed wood. So this wood, like the cladding of the facade, we were using the ulin from Kalimantan, and we never need any finishing, no chemical, no maintenance as well. It works. This building already like more than 12 years now. And also for all of those doors and windows, we were using the reclaimed wood from the leaking boat. And when we like to buy it in Java, because in Java, the boat are made out of thick wood. So the quality of the wood is good. And like all of those pillars, it was the footing of a jetty.
So, but if you built that from new material, that would be a nightmare to maintain.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because this.
By the way, everybody, you can jump in anytime you want, right?
Sure,
we don't have to queue up here, okay? Just, it's a free-for-all now, okay? This is we have 10 minutes for free-for-all. Just jump in, Anneke, if you have
Okay,
something
so
to say.
good, yeah, because I would like to talk a little bit about cross ventilation, and you were just talking about a natural way to protect from the sun, by building to
Yeah.
the north, which is great. And like our tents, for example, they're like totally open, so there's always like cross ventilation. And my inspiration for the tents that I do is that we have two roofs. So this is the bottom part, and there's another roof on top of it, like the
That's
wantilan.
kind of a wantilan thing,
Yes,
Popo,
exactly, right, exactly.
Oh.
So there's
Kan kayak wantilan jadinya, the tent.
Yeah, of course.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like the hot air goes out, so you never need to heat up. You never need to cool the hot air. So, but there's also always like the cross ventilation, so you actually don't really need an air conditioner. I think I do have a bed that is air conditioned, so you only air condition a small space, let's say 2 by 2. And I have a mosquito net over it that just holds the cool air inside, so I can get it about 23 degrees in there. So I don't need to heat up to cool the whole room. Because if you close down the whole tent, of course, the whole concept of living like with nature and all of that is gone, because you lock yourself up.
What if it rains and
space
there's a big
again.
storm? Don't you have to close it down?
No. Sometimes if, the rain, because usually in Bali, it's always
Yeah.
like nice design rain, I call it. Always nice and straight.
Depends where you live.
Yes, by the
Are you talking
Ayung River.
that you have the
yes.
switch for the rain?
Of course I have. It's all a mindset, dear. So we do have that sometimes, and then we just like close 1 or 2 panels, but mostly we don't need to do that at all, because we have actually also some hybrids. So we have like some sliding doors in areas where that might happen more often. So you can just kind of like be a little bit more secure.
What about the
Yeah.
materials? The canvas, does it last forever? Or you're using very high quality canvas, right?
Where are they manufactured mostly?
Well, that is the problem still. I'm trying to develop a new material here in Indonesia, but about 85% of my tents are like all materials are local, except the top layer of the roof.
Oh, the coverage.
Yeah, I have 4. I have like insulation, and we have like 1 extra layer for the rain, and 1 for the interior to have a nice decoration. So you don't look at a metal frame, because it's like a metal frame that we do. So that also brings me to the recyclability of my whole product, because the metal frames, they can actually be recycled. So let's say in 25 years or maybe longer, I don't know yet, because I've lived in tents for 15 years now, so I can only go 15 years. But from what I've seen, you know, when we open the tents and see what's going on, there is very little wear and tear. So I think the only thing that you need to change once in a while is like the top layer of the roof, and that's maybe every 6 or 7 years, depending on where you.
Is it a major expense?
No, maybe like $5,000 or $6,000. So it's not like a huge expense, because I live in it. So for me, it's like my house. I don't know what it costs to replace a roof here in Bali.
Well, you probably pay more than that for an alang-alang roof.
I would think so, yeah. And then the other disadvantage is when you have an alang-alang roof, you have to, your whole roof is gone, right? You can't live there.
You don't
for
want
a
to light
while.
any candles.
Yeah. So you need to go somewhere else for like a couple of days, right? So in the
Yeah.
tents
Oh,
we
yeah,
have
yeah.
more layers, so you
It's
just take it
horrible.
off, and then you know it just
It's
arrives.
absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
Change it. Kristine, do you have any remarks to make when we're talking about this building, the architectural? What do you? I see you sort of thinking there as they were talking. So what were you thinking then?
Well, I was thinking about that both of you create buildings that allow for people to really be living really closely with nature, which I think is an important thing to talk about too, because there's a big detachment from nature, I feel, at the moment going on, especially in bigger cities, and I think it makes us less reluctant to be sustainable. When you're really close to nature and you experience nature on a daily basis, maybe even listen to nature, feel nature all the time, I think that creates a connection that might make you inclined to live a little bit more sustainably, I hope. That is maybe on a little bit more of a poetic level, you could say. Yeah, but otherwise, I feel like that we still need to maybe also address the unfortunate factor that sustainability tends to sometimes become like the new luxury, and that
That was
can
my
be...
next point.
I read your mind. And that can be a little bit unfortunate, because it's a good thing that I suppose that sustainability is viewed as a luxury now, and that sustainable experiences are considered luxurious experiences, but it also does imply that it's not necessarily always possible for everybody.
Last question to all of you. Okay, bouncing right off what you just said.
Yeah.
How do we then? Do we even bother, or how do we, if we do bother, to bring that sustainability in architectural design, for example, in what you're doing, the tents or your architect, to the level where it is economically viable for people, you know, who can't afford the luxurious end of things? How, you know, do you see eventually yourself like, you know, sitting down at the table with some of the captains of industry? I mean, you know, have you ever sort of thought about that? I mean, and Popo, can you think about, for example, how you could make designs, you know, that are recycled, viable for a living, et cetera, ethical, but at a price point that could really be attractive to people who have, you know, let's just say middle class, or, you know, whatever means, you know, or even better, the people who are working class. I mean, that's a bit more of a stretch, but still. I mean, is that at all on your radar?
Yeah, for us, because we are doing the sustainable design through the cultural way, I think that also provide several layers of economic coverage, because like the way of using the local materials, for instance, and also using the local building technology, somehow it's also reduced the cost of construction, because we are using everything locally, and we distribute the money of the construction budget locally as well.
Okay.
In that way, we can also control the budget of the construction to make it affordable in the way of setting the selling price of the facilities later on. So probably I would ask permission after we close this session, there's a break, we can put our 3 minutes video of our project in Sumba, the way we work together with the local people.
Anneke, you have a closing comment on that?
At this point, I think that, well, for example, the tents that I make, I have like let's say, a building that is 7.5 by 5 meters, which is like a bedroom and a bathroom. The cost of that is about $20,000. So I think it's a very reasonable price. But you know, you have to have a mindset. I think that's a very important thing that we haven't really discussed enough yet. Is like people's mindset. You know, can I live like that? You know, and actually, it is a luxury not to want or need luxury, right? So it's a whole mindset that you. I don't know how to do it. Is it through advertising? Is it through
well, mindset
action?
is also,
is it
there's
through,
a cultural aspect to mindset
yeah,
as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Of course, it is. In every country, it's different. That's
Yes,
true
exactly.
too. Yeah. Because I recently had one of my staff. I was talking to him, and he said, you know, we feel like we're just like little nothings. You know, it's like bringing salt or water to the sea. You know, we have no influence. And I say, no, that's really very wrong. You do have. You know, you just have to have the mindset. And even if you think about recycling once a week, and 1 million people are doing that, that already makes a difference. It's just a matter of mindset and just doing it, and not only that, but taking action. Because I recently had a meeting, and all the people who were sitting there was all about environmental issues, and the people that were working for that company, I said, so are you recycling at home? None of these people did. So it was like, you know, you're working on it, we're talking about it, but you know.
Now you got to walk it.
Yeah, you're a walker, right?
You got to walk it.
Can I just say something about that? I agree very much with that, with the mindset thing, and also the fact that what you were saying, it doesn't always have to be more expensive to do it sustainably, right? I mean,
No.
I think we are also dealing with the fact that people have become very accustomed to convenience, and convenience products tend to be very unsustainable. And it's a little bit more inconvenient to refill stuff and so forth, but that's definitely something that I feel could also be one of the future tasks of designers to work with, that kind of storytelling, mindset changer, cultural alterations, whatever we should call it, because it's so true. It's so much about the mindset too. It is about affordability, accessibility, but certainly also about mindset. Yeah.
Okay. We have, do we have any questions right here? And there's a question here from somebody here also, which, can we have in Kristine's, okay, you, just 1 minute, go ahead, Renee, go ahead.
Okay, oh, sorry.
Okay. No,
Yeah,
just-
this is Renee Thorpe from the Bali Advertiser. Okay, well done, you guys. I'm going to speak for consumers, for your industry, your movement to make natural and local part of our language. Okay, we're all using it. All the expats, we say that. Unfortunately, we have gone to the end of the usefulness of saying local, because what it can mean is shoddy stuff from the hardware store that, oh, this will be easy because if it breaks, I'll replace it. It's available locally, okay, is often what people think. And then natural, okay, great, this beach is full of stones and these villagers are selling it out here on the street for cheaper than anything I can buy in Denpasar. Okay, beach disappears. I witness this daily at my beach.
So what's the question?
Okay, my question is, how are you now going to make define, thank you Rio for doing that, but define sustainability to your clients and make it as easy for people to roll off their tongues and demand when they are making their choies?
Can we get
Sustainability.
Who are you addressing this to? Anybody here? Any takers?
Well, you need to be committed to want it. So, like let's say I have a client. Of course, when they come to me, it's automatically they already know that they get like something sustainable. So this might be, huh? Well, they already get it when they come to me because living in a tent is something already quite sustainable. But if you talk about a building, I think it's more
sustainability
different.
Today
yeah.
is also part of the
Yeah.
marketing tools.
Yeah, that's
When
right,
you
yeah.
are green, it's much easier for you to reach the market because people are care about it. Yeah, at least we can help to develop this awareness for everybody.
Kristine, would you have a comment on that?
You're asking about like how we make it more available generally, yeah.
How are you helping people, normal people, consumers, to be fluent in that word because they aren't?
With the word sustainability, really. I think it's a very difficult one, to be honest. I think I think sometimes the problem is that there are too many words, too much talk about it. It becomes, it
meaningless.
Drowns in, it's used too much. It becomes completely, meaningless. It's too many. Everybody uses it, and then the meaning and the power of it disappears. So actually almost encouraging people to use different words would be maybe more specific words. Okay, if I'm working with sustainable, what do I mean? Do I mean that it's hard wearing? Then say that. What do I mean? Do I mean that it's ethically produced? Then say that. I think that would help.
Being specific.
Being specific.
Coming off
translating
that. Right now, coming off being specific. You quoted this in your book of the UN's 17 Sustainable Goals, but you didn't quote it as something. You were commenting on it, and somebody and I also, we're all a little bit cynical about the UN these days. But in any case, somebody here says, Heidi, who's Heidi? Where's Heidi? Gone? Okay. Was that online? Was it? Okay. Heidi Wenger asks, but don't those UN goals have a sinister underlying agenda? Well, okay. Does anybody disagree? No, okay, go ahead. You want to answer, do you think it has a sinister underlying agenda?
Yes, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, I do write about the Sustainable Development Goals in my book, and I think it can be important guidelines for sure for companies. They are just what I just talked about with sustainability and it being extremely abstract. I think that goes for this too. It becomes very abstract. It becomes hard to measure. It becomes hard to really understand when are we reaching these goals. Of course, they are kind of working with that on the side and kind of ongoingly reporting that, but still it's very abstract.
It is very abstract. And I have a feeling that the part that made her think it might be sinister is that the purpose of changing inexpedient behavior. I mean, like, what's inexpedient behavior?
Exactly. And I mean,
that's kind of scary.
Yeah, you sit with a lot of questions like that, don't you, when you read them? So yes.
So okay, we're almost at the end, and I'm going to do something which might have been unethical if I hadn't cleared it first with Janet Denif. And I would like to show the slide of the yang itu funding untuk yang terakhir yang saya kasih itu. As we're talking about sustainable architecture, yang terakhir yang PDF yang thank you. As you all know, we've been talking about sustainable architectural sustainable things, and there's been I was part of a group of people during Agung's eruption cycle, and we were doing a lot of work for resettling people for the temporary camps, et cetera. And this group, we all suddenly, when this happened on the 16th on Saturday, we all went, oh man, here we go again, And we have in the Ban area, which is the northeastern section of Gunung Agung, the slopes. Ban is a huge village. It goes almost to the sea, right up to the top of the mountain there. And in that area alone, 343 houses were almost completely destroyed. Several people killed, and then also in Trunyan people were killed. There were also maybe around 300 other houses which were damaged badly. What we're trying, so Copernic, who I worked with, not as an employee, but worked together with them, they are audited. So if you would like to make a contribution, what we'd like to do is get simple things like more tarpaulins, so we can do like A-frames and put tarps over them, because it's cold up there and it's raining now, and it's like, people are freaked out. They don't want to go back even into the lightly damaged buildings. So it would be really nice if, even if you can, whatever you can afford, 500,000, whatever, it makes a difference. And you could spread it, and Janet has agreed to put it on the Ubud Writers social media. And what you can do now, if you can leave that up for a little while, dibiarin aja ya. I think you could, there's enough resolution there for you to scan that QR code directly. Yeah? You just did it? Okay, great. So that takes you straight to the Copernic's account and whatever you need to do there. As I said, Copernic, they are an audited foundation, so any money that goes in there from today on, it's going to be clear where it came from, what it was for, so you don't need to be too nervous about, somebody driving a Lamborghini tomorrow. A sustainable Lamborghini made out of bamboo.
Oh, yeah. Recycled bamboo.
So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for your patience with my little spiel here. And big hand for the speakers.
Tunggu. Ini.
Bentar. So if you want to scan it now, because Popo would like to show his little video after that. So please, thank you so much, everybody. Did you scan it from there? Did you?
Can I?
Okay. Oh, wow. Thank you. Ta-da. This is better than a Lamborghini. How cool is that? And wait, have you figured out? Okay, so you open
Selamat siang.
from my handphone. It charges from my handphone.
And then, if you want to use a solar panel, I have a small solar panel here that's not a gift to you yet, but so this is so you
This.
put it there, and it charges this thing here.
Selamat siang semuanya. Untuk pemilik mobil dengan nomor 1731.
Dalam proyek Lelewatu ini, kami juga menggali apa yang bisa kita angkat di Tanah Sumba dari sisi sumber daya manusia, sumber daya alam, dan bagaimana kita memanfaatkan bahan-bahan lokal, kerajinan lokal, dan juga seni budaya lokal untuk menjadi bagian dari desain secara keseluruhan. Dan yang lebih penting lagi adalah bahwa dalam setiap arsitektur lokal di bumi Nusantara ini selalu ada pesan-pesan khusus tentang ekologi dan sustainability. Ini luar biasa kalau kita bisa sampaikan kepada audiens kita tentang makna-makna itu semua.